Paul Roberts of Conscious Counseling 101, and I've got something for you today that you never hear. And I have never found anywhere, anyone on the planet that could tell this to you in the way that I'm going to tell it to you. And I kind of am excited to be able to say this, and I don't really know how to preface it. I'll just say, I can tell you why homosexuality is considered wrong in the eyes of God. Not man, not any other way, just in the eyes of God. You've probably never heard this before. So sit back, relax, and know that I'm not jaded, I'm not judgmental. I'm going to share with you something you might not have ever heard. I'm going to show you a context of biblical referencing that very few people will ever get. But don't take it from me. Go look it up. And don't just look it up and read this little thing. I'm going to be done in 5 minutes. Go and do a full research study. Go and find out if what I'm saying is true. Don't take it from me. So about 30 years ago, I went in and talked to my pastor. And I said, I always used to like to talk to him about a lot of different things. I'd take time and go over there when he has time in his study hours and whatnot after his work each day. And I said to him one day, I said, "What's this verse mean about not spilling your seed onto the ground? That's a wrong thing to do." I was like, "Whoa, does this mean that every single time that we, a wife and a man would ever have sex would only be for procreation? What does this mean?" I was so concerned. I thought, is it a sin if you spill your seed onto the ground? And he pointed me in the direction of context, understanding the difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, understanding why that would be wrong to the Old Covenant that makes up the Old Testament, why that would be wrong. He said, because these people is who it's speaking to. These people, these chosen people that have been given this ability to relate to God in a way that everything is concretely laid out. The promises are there for a long life and prosperity and vanquishing your enemies and all kinds of things that are in the law that will, if they were adhered to, will come true as blessings in the physical realm of mankind. And rules were set up for health things, for marriage things, for everything you could think of was in the law. And God was with his people, and God made a covenant with those people and a vow to those people that if you honor me and follow my ways, I will shine my face onto you and watch over you, and you will be my people. But if you don't, you will become cursed. So this video is about why homosexuality is wrong. In order to find out why God thinks that homosexuality is wrong, you must first say, well, why is spilling your seed onto the ground wrong? And the reason is because the descendants and the faith of those chosen people and believing that God is there for you and putting what you do to the test and following that covenant would mean the woman, the sexual nature, the trusting that you're going to have a sexual relationship with them and you're going to bring forth, if it's the will of God, another person into the world, another soul, should be gone after without question that that's the road to take. So if you don't have enough faith to do that, you spilled your seed onto the ground for an evil intent to not go down that road that was set forth for you. It wasn't that spilling your seed on the ground was wrong. It was that you didn't have the faith to go down that road that was set forth for you. And so instead you have an evil intent to spill your seed on the ground and to intervene and get in the way of what God's way was for man. And because you were willing to do that, that was what was wrong. If you follow this, this takes us to the next step. Why is homosexuality wrong? In that way, to those people, homosexuality would be wrong because, again, that's a misuse of your seed. That's a misuse of your genealogy. That's a misuse of what you're here for to do, to be that chosen people and to continue on the lineage. So in the misuse of that, we call that what comes out of a man it's not what goes in. Later Jesus said, it's not what goes into the man that makes him unclean. It's what comes out of the man that makes him unclean. And from that comes all means of sexual immorality, including not believing that your faith and doing what God would want you to do would be followed. That you would intervene somehow, or you would go perversely off one direction or another. It wasn't that way would be necessarily perverse. It was that way wasn't intended. Because to follow through with what God had planned for that chosen people, it wouldn't commence if you went a different track, if you went a different route. So just in that way, spilling your seed, going intently to find sexual attraction with anything other than for procreation, for the intense satisfaction of a man and woman together that would create that lineage, that would continue that chosen people's path. Anything that was off of that would be in another realm. And if the other realm was followed, then that was what was wrong with it. Just the fact that you didn't have the faith to go down the track that was laid out would be what was wrong with it. Now, you take that and you apply that to where we're going now. Where are we going now? That's all trashed. That's not the way any longer. That has failed. When Jesus was crucified, the temple curtain was torn in two, and the holiest of holies was able to be entered by the typical person as a priest. That new realm made all that came before it obsolete. And in so that it was obsolete, what did it now become? It now became where each person had a personal connection. No longer was there a division and a translation from that division to the person. Now, all people were grafted on and able to walk into that area, even if they weren't of the chosen people. So it's very important to realize that because this happened, we now cannot judge any longer, because the spilling the seed on the ground would have been wrong, because the lineage thing was not intact anymore. The idea that various other forms of sexual activity would come out of that, but they're not trying to find that lineage any longer, then no longer are those things wrong, because the blockage to that lineage that would have been found doesn't exist any longer, because the lineage is over with. The covenant is over with. We're into the new covenant now. And so since there's no block to the new lineage of the chosen people and continuing that heritage of their genealogy, therefore the spilling the seed on the ground and the original thing that it meant was moot. So now we have a new place in time where the spilling of the seed on the ground is a moot point. We have to ask ourselves, is the sexual immorality that was talked about truly the sexual immorality that is now talked about with homosexuality? I think it's probably different now, because the blockage to the lineage of where it would have gone is moot. Now it's just a sexual act of the human body's gratification, but with no possibility of ever continuing that lineage. Now the question is, where do we put our hearts? Where do we put our faith? Where do we put our mind? Is it only about gratification? Sexual bodily gratification? If it is, I think you could look at this way. Jesus said that the love of money is the root of all evil. What is money? Money is the means and ways in this world to produce satisfactions and make sure that you have what you bodily need to thrive in this realm. If you don't have monies and other means, you can still gain bodily gratifications. But if all you're about is this realm, that's very much about what money is. Gratifying what you can find in this realm. If you're chasing after this or this or this, is it not sexual immorality in the sense that it would have been by blocking what God wanted for his people, for his chosen people? But it is sexual immorality in the sheer fact that it's guiding you off to various means and ways that would keep you from finding truth and value of what the soul should be searching for. So in that way, it's less than could be. But why do we not judge? Because we all find many other ways to be less than we could be. And the ways that we find that are less than we could be are no worse than those that are seeking gratification because of their ills and their concerns and their misalignments with the lack of understanding of where we should be seeking. These people will be very much like the man that was blind. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees said, "This is because you were steeped in sin from birth." No, it's not because you were steeped in sin from birth. It's because what he would have reached out for in the leaders of society that could have shown what the Father above would have wanted were incapable of it, because they had already corrupted that which they would have shared freely and made a litigious society so that they could rise up and man and father could be higher than other man. That's the corruption that people have done in the name of God. And we're still seeing that today. I would offer this to you as a way to see that what Jesus said about we will judge as we judge, in order to not judge harshly and wrongly, we must find a heightened conscience, a way to understand a different way of looking at the things that all other people that are on the broad road that is leading straight to destruction would find, because others that were there would also share that with them and hope they would find it too and lead them to eternal damnation. In order to avoid that, all we need to do is reach and knock, and the door will be opened. And with that door being opened in our faith, and we pursue and study, Jesus says we will come to know him, know his commandments, and keep his commandments, and understand him and his ways through those things. If we're willing to walk that road, this will be revealed. What have you got to lose? What's so great about your life right now? You're confused. You're anxious. You've got anxiety about so many things. So many of the answers can be found right in the scriptures, but not using the words in the way that you want to use them for mankind, and your purposes, and your shallow purposes like the Sadducees and Pharisees of before that had litigiously remolded the society for their own purposes, but you can find them for a holy purpose, a purpose that sets you free and breaks the binds and bonds that are holding you. This is one of the things that Conscious Counseling 101 can do for you. It can show you what the Word actually says and not tell you, because if I told you, I'd be like a father, a pastor, minister. No, this is what's wrong with the world. I will guide you to see, and you will come to see. Not being told, but by seeing. By the Holy Spirit that is available to all mankind now through the new covenant.